Welcome to our second session for District 33's Leadership Lab session for today. This session is on advanced pathways. Just to make sure that everyone is in the right Zoom room, we have another session that is a Vice President of Public Relations in another room using another link. Before I start, I want to introduce myself for those that just joined us. My name is Clarice Kresser, and I am District 33's Program Quality Director. I want to thank you all for taking your evening with us for a Monday night to join us for this session. This session is being recorded, so for those of you who do not wish to be recorded or not to be seen on the recording, please feel free to turn off your video, and we will not, so you won't be identified. This recording will be available for everyone to view after it has been reviewed and edited. We have to go through an editing process, which takes a little time. So with that, I'd like to see a show of hands using your emoticons. How many of you have completed level 1 on pathways? You want to use a thumbs up? Okay, level 1 completion, at least on pathways. Okay, how many of you let's go the other end of the spectrum. How many of you are new to pathways, haven't even logged on or haven't selected a path? Is there anyone in the room? Okay, good. Because Jaya raised your hand. Jaya, do you have a question? Or I think you're saying you're new to pathways, Jaya? Okay, so this session is not about showing you the ropes on how to start pathways or get through a level. That's another Leadership Lab session. What we're going to go over tonight is an overview of pathways in how it's structured for the different levels and how to get through pathways. It's a general overview of the entire program and going over the different paths. So that's the reason why it's called advanced, is because I'm assuming that you have some basic knowledge, or that at least you've logged on to pathways, because that is not this session. We're not going to go through how to log on and choose a path. It's to give you an overview. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and could I hear if you can see this slide? It says advanced pathways for members. Can you see that?
Yes, it's
Yes.
good.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
Yes, can.
Yes.
Great. So with that, what we're going to cover in this session is, as I mentioned, we'll go over some things on just pathways in general. We'll talk about the different components, paths, levels, and elective projects for levels 2 through 5. I will cover the DTM requirements under pathways, and then we will have time for a Q&A. I also, in this presentation, tried to incorporate the questions that have come up when you registered. Some of you responded in terms of what questions you have, or one piece of information you would like to know from this session. So I did my best to incorporate that in this and make sure it was addressed in this presentation. In pathways, as you may know, there are 11 paths. Pathways is the only education program right now for Toastmasters. We had an old program, the traditional program, but right now, beginning this year, it is all things pathways for the educational program. There are 11 paths that a member can choose, and these paths are listed here and shown here on this slide. And this is actually something that is available on the TI website through Basecamp Manager, or some of the pathways resources. Those paths are dynamic leadership, effective coaching, engaging humor, innovative planning, leadership development, motivational strategies, persuasive influence, presentation mastery, strategic relationships, team collaboration, and visionary communication. And so it covers a wide breadth of focus areas covering different areas around communication and leadership. And in one particular case for engaging humor, speaking, using humor for speaking. Within each 11 paths, there are 14 projects, 14 different types of speech projects that you could do within each of these learning paths that you may choose. When we're talking about the 11 paths, each path focuses on 5 core competencies, and they're listed here on the left. They generally cover things related to public speaking, how you communicate with others, interpersonal communication, strategic leadership, being strategic in terms of your leadership roles, management of others, management of a team. And then the other is on the 5th one is building your own and increasing your own self-confidence. Based on the 5 core competencies, you'll notice here on the right, this lists all of the 11 paths. Not all 11 paths focus on all of the core competencies. At the most, a path would cover 4 out of the 5. I love this handout because, and it's a publication I put here that you could find on TI. What I love about this is that as a member, or even as a new member who is trying to decide what path to take, I love this tool because it gives you a visual on which paths focus on what emphasis they have on the different core competencies. So for example, if you only wanted to focus on your public speaking skills and confidence, you're really not interested in some of the strategic leadership or management. If you wanted public speaking and confidence, that would be now core competency 1 and 5. You can look here on the right, well, which of these paths focus on just the speaking part and confidence? And you'll notice that there are 2 paths, engaging humor, as well as presentation mastery, that only focus on that. And engaging humor, building public speaking and speech writing skills, or presentation mastery focuses on building public speaking skills. So that way, visually, you can eliminate, if you want, the other paths, and you can research more on whatever path of the 2 that you want to focus on. This helps to kind of hone in on the kinds of path that you want to be able to select and choose to pursue. Now this is like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful diagram. And I don't know if James is in the house. I think, James, I saw you. This is a wonderful document that was given to us and developed by Crown Valley Toastmasters in Division C. And I'm going to put this later in the chat box and we'll go over this. And I want to, we'll go over some of this as a reference, because what this does is it shares, and I'll put this in, actually I have it as a easier document to see, not as a PowerPoint. All right, can you see this? It's much closer here.
Yeah, that's
okay. All right, so I'm going to do a schematic kind of diagram or overview of this, and then we'll go over it in a few other slides. So what I love about this is that if you're looking for a 1-pager document that gives you a great overview of pathways, this is it. Tremendous resource. Because what this shows you is on the left side, it lists all of the 11 paths. In pathways, you have 5 levels. When you go through each level, it starts basically, level 1 is like just the basics. But as you increase in levels, you're going to learn not just level 1, mastering the fundamentals, and I'll zoom this in, mastering the fundamentals. But as you progress, you're doing your complexity and the level of projects and involvement of other people and teams, and specialization based on whatever path you chooses, it increases as you go up your level. So for each of for every path, you have 5 levels. The first one covers mastering fundamentals. The second will cover learning your style. Generally, it's learning your style of leadership and communication for those paths that cover leadership and communication subjects. things like the engaging humor and presentation mastery that only focuses on speaking skills and confidence, you're learning more about your humor style, for example. You're not focused on leadership and communication, and we'll go over that. But and then level 3 focuses on increasing your knowledge based on your path. Level 4 will be based on your now, and when you go into level 4, you're building the skills that you learned and that you reviewed in the previous levels. And you're in level 4, you're going to be doing projects that incorporate those skills that you learned and strengthened in the prior levels. When you get to the level 5, it becomes now you're not just building skills, you're now demonstrating your expertise based on your particular path. So you have those categories for each of the levels. Now, for each one, again, what I love about this is that when you look at this, you see these columns for each one. Now, for each of these, it describes what each of the projects are. So you'll notice for a level 1, mastering the fundamentals, no matter what your path is, you will always have an icebreaker project, a speech project. You're going to have a project covering evaluation and feedback, which covers 3 speeches, speech 1 and 2, and you have to serve as an evaluator, and you're evaluated on that. And then the other one is there's a research and presenting speech project. So you'll see like the columns are vertical. It pertains to all of the paths here. Now, as you go across, you're going to see, so you pick your path, you look for the path that you're enrolled in, and you could see visually what are the things that you need to do to complete each level. It shows you on a visual. So let's use dynamic leadership as an example. In dynamic leadership, you have all your level 1s that you have to, projects you have to complete. And then once you complete that, your level 2 will cover understanding your style for leadership and communication. There are specific speech projects for each of these that you would have to do, and also reviewing the online lesson that you have to do on Pathway, on Basecamp. Then on level 2, you'll notice, actually those are the only ones that you have to do for dynamic leadership. So once you complete those 2, then you could, then you'll have to do this introduction to mentoring is another project or another piece to do, and that's for all of the level 2 projects. Once you complete that, then you go to level 3. When you go to level 3, it shows you in dynamic leadership, you have this required speech project or project called negotiate the best outcome. You have no choice on that. That's the only one for that path for dynamic leadership. However, when you complete that, you'll notice it has, you have to complete a level 3 elective project. It's actually 2 level 3 elective projects. And you're wondering, well, what are those elective projects? Those elective projects are listed down here that you could choose. You could do up to 2, which is the minimum required, but you can do more. So it's your choice. You could choose for one of either, I don't know how many there are like 14 of these. For those of you that were in the traditional program, some of these look familiar from the advanced communicator communication manuals. Connect with storytelling, connect with audience, connect with the visual aids. You choose the path and the projects that you want from this choice. Then once you go to level 4, you're into building your skills. So for dynamic leadership, the required project under level 4 is called managing change. You have to do, that's a requirement for that. And then to complete the next level, you have to complete at least one level 4 elective project. And you choose among this choice for level 4. So you could pick one of either of these topics, or you could do more, but this is your choice to be able to get through and complete that level 4 elective project. It becomes more complicated because you can see, here you're connecting with storytelling. As you get to a level 4 elective project, there's more effort, there's more time involved to complete it. It's not just read and then just complete a speech project. It depends on the project. You might have to like create a podcast. You might actually have to, I think you actually have to create a podcast. You have to do more work and other things that involve in there are instructions for each project. Then when you get to a level 5, again on discuss dynamic leadership, it's lead in any situation is a required level 5 project. And then you can pick a level 5 elective project here. And down here, it shows you what are those choices for the elective projects to choose from. It's one of these that you can choose from. And then for all of the projects to complete level 5, you have a reflect on your path project that you have to do as a requirement. So like I said, I wanted to go over because this is a resource I'm going to give you and that you will have as a reference, but I wanted to be able to show you how do you read this table and this document. And I'll refer to this in just a bit for another part of the presentation. Okay, so now let's go back to PowerPoint, make sure. Okay, so we're back to this, and if you cannot see the next slide, which is a review again on the different paths, and I just covered that in terms of the 5 levels, and it builds upon complexity from level 1 all the way to level 5. And your last project that you would do for a path completion is a reflecting on your path, which is required for all of the projects. One of the things I wanted to highlight for a level 3, you have to serve as a table topics master or a Toastmaster and evaluator by the end of level 3 as part of that. All right. So we've already gone over this through the previous when I went over the slide. So this is just a summary of what I just mentioned. Level 3 projects, you have a minimum of 2 to complete. That's in addition to the required project that may be required for that particular path. So a minimum of 2 to complete. There are 14 to choose from, which we just covered. And then level 4, you have, in terms of elective projects, you have a minimum of 1 to complete and to choose among 8 to choose from. For level 5, you have a minimum of 1 and you have 6 choices in terms of elective projects to choose from that go all the way from ethical leadership. There's a high performance leadership project you have to complete. That's one of your options, as well as leading your volunteer organization is another project you could choose from. Now, a couple of you had asked, how do you complete a level in a project? So I want to go over that. And this pertains to level 1, level 2, 3, 4, and 5. So when you sign on to your Basecamp, you should see when you open your path, you will see this window, which shows you what your progress is on the level that you're currently working on. So this screenshot shows just one of the levels. This is a level 1, but no matter whether it's level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's the same thing. So because on the left side, this is the motivational strategies path. This left side is a gauge that shows you what levels you've completed. So in this particular case, because there are no check marks here, this member has not completed a level 1 yet because it's not checked. Now here, it will show you the current level that you're on and the progress. So according to this gauge, this member has completed, you'll see all of the projects that were listed. So if you remember, on level 1, you have 3 projects: an icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, which comprises of 3 speech projects. And then you have a research and presenting project, which has 1 speech project. Once you complete the online lesson, this is not the speech projects, okay? This is what you do online, whether on your computer or on your tablet or iPad. This shows you where your progress is on the lesson. So once you've completed that, you'll have a check mark. And that's what you want to see. You want to see the check marks on here, because that way Basecamp recognizes that you've completed and you've gone through the online lesson. And once you have all of your projects checked in your particular level, so level 1, you have 3 projects, 3 check marks. In order to complete it, to trigger basically Basecamp to send a message to your VPE or your other Basecamp managers you completed, you need to go to this box. There's a drop-down menu, and you need to select it as Mark Complete. This is important, that this part says you've clicked on it and say Mark Complete. But you cannot mark as complete if you don't have all these check marks checked. So as a member, make sure before, Basecamp won't let you anyways. If you don't have all your projects checked as completed, it will not allow you to do this. So the question is, how do you, what if you have some of these check marks are not completed? Well, there are a couple of things that may be the reason why these are not checked. And the common one is when you open up your pathways in your lesson, you always start off with that lesson, like whether it's a icebreaker project or evaluation feedback. It always asks you to complete a before assess skills survey. So it's important that you be sure you've completed your before assess skills and that you've completed the after one. You'll know that you completed the after one because after you've clicked your responses, you should be getting a summary. A little window will show up with a summary of your responses for all the questions in your before responses, and it will show you your responses for your after. If you do not see that before and after, then you're going to have to go back to, most likely you have to go back to the before assessments and check and complete that assessment. So you make sure that you do the before and after assessments. Now, to go from one project to another, you don't need any approval process. You can just go into it. But when you're completing a level, it does become important in order for you to get the check marks for each of the projects here, like icebreaker, evaluation, feedback. Most likely the problem is because of that before and after skills assessment. That usually is one of the common problems. Now, when you mark this as complete, this is a level 1. Then once you've done that, there is a message, there is an email that goes to the Basecamp manager. It goes to the VPE. I'm not sure if it also goes to the president and secretary, who are the other 2 Basecamp managers, but I know that the email goes to the VPE that says, Johnny has completed level 1 of whatever path and requires your approval. It's not your approval, it's the Basecamp. It's an email that says to the Basecamp manager VPE, you need to, they need to do something in Basecamp manager to approve that level completion. And when they do that, they go on Basecamp manager and they check off a box with your name. But in doing so, that VPE is also confirming that you as a member have also completed the required speech projects for that level. So in order to complete a level, it's not just the online lesson, you also have to complete the speech projects associated with that particular level in order to progress, in order for that Basecamp manager to, to accurately, when they're clicking on that box that says approve, they have confirmed with you that you've completed all your speech projects. Now, I want to add that this has come up, like, how do I, confirm? VPEs, best practices are that the VPE either has their own record, it has maintained their own record of that the member has completed the speech projects. The other is, as a member, I strongly encourage you to keep copies of all your evaluation forms that you have, whether it's an electronic copy as a PDF or an actual paper copy. And it is because if you want to keep your own records of the progress of your completion. So when you've completed a level, I would encourage you as part of that process, if that's what your VPE and your club says to do, and it's best practices, that you provide a copy of those evaluation forms. It's really only the first and second page because it'll show the date of the speech project. It shows the evaluation form. A completed evaluation form confirms that the member delivered the speech at a club and that it was evaluated. And so that, again, that is best practices, that you provide your VPE with that evaluation form as documentation. And it makes it easier for them to be able to just check it off. It's just a lot of work. And I'm speaking as a VPE. And for those of you that are VPEs in the room, having Pathways with this online portion has just added a lot of other additional responsibilities, and keeping track of all the speech projects for all the members and members who belong to multiple clubs who can also deliver speech projects at another club. It is just too much. So make their lives easier by just keeping your evaluation forms and then distributing it and handing it to your VPE for the level completion that you want to receive credit for. So once you've completed all the levels, then you're done with your path. It's just a matter of completing all of the speech projects and doing the steps that we just reviewed for your marking it as complete for your level. So this same step pertains to a level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's all the same for getting through each of the completing the levels.
All right, so we got a couple of questions. Can we ask you first?
Sure.
So I think Jaya talked about do we have to complete levels in order, or can we do speech projects in any order? I think we have to do the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Don't they
so.
allow you to come out at level 3? You used to be level 1 and 2, then 3, 4, 5. I don't remember.
You can go in terms of delivering speech projects. You do not have to complete the online and review the online lesson sequentially. And you can. Some people like to go in order, but there is the ability to be able to, you have access to any and all levels and the speech projects for all the levels. You don't have to have it marked as complete in order to access it. You already have access to that.
Okay.
What the mark is complete, where that happens and where that's particularly important is for you as a member to receive the educational award for completing the level. So you have to, again, to complete a level, and in order to receive the educational award for a level, any level, let's just use level 1, you have to do 2 things. You have to make sure you've done the online lesson in the steps that I just described. And then number 2, you have to make sure you completed all the speech projects for all of the level 1 projects that are required. And when the VPE checks off and marks it as complete, they are, by doing so, confirming you've done all the speech projects and the levels. You can go, even though you may be working on a level 1, you can complete an elective project in a higher level in that same path or any path that you're enrolled in. For those of you, and I found this helpful because as a club officer, you may have, and even as a district officer or even at work, it's important that I encourage you, that's why the overview of the projects and knowing what projects are part of your path. If you are familiar what those projects are, and you have a situation, say at work or as a district officer, where say you're going to conduct, we're in speech contest season. You're conducting and you're the contest chair for an area contest. But say you're in a level one in pathways. There are several level 4 projects that you can actually use to count as a speech project for a higher level. So you can do that. You just won't get the completion. Just because you completed the speech in a level 4 does not mean that you've completed the requirements, but you can do the projects out of order without having to go through that process. I hope I answered that question.
So that means you can enroll in more than one path, just keep going doing that, right?
Yes. Yes.
And another question had was secretary does not get, even though it's Basecamp manager, does not get an email for the approval. I think only VP gets them, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
For, like a level complete, the notification usually just go to the VPE. And president and secretary, they don't get them, but they are Basecamp managers, so they can actually go in and check once in a while.
Yes, they can. And so as a member, because we all are inundated with emails, I would, don't assume that your VPE has read their email. So if this is, one suggestion is if you already completed it, alert your VPE and say, Michael, I just completed my level 2 project. Could you please, at your earliest convenience, approve? When you have that direct communication, it's like a trigger, then that VPE, well, oh, okay, I need to check on Clarice's level completion. So if you don't hear a response, follow up. If you are a VPE, you cannot approve your own project. You'll have to get another Basecamp manager to approve it. So once they approve it, then what happens is the VPE or any officer would, once that's approved, then they would submit the award in Club Central to submit the award. So when you're a VPE, submitting awards for a member is a 2-step process in Pathways. You need to approve either the level or the path completion on Basecamp. And in doing so, again, you confirm they've done all the speech projects, they've done all the online pieces. By checking off on that approval, you confirm that. Then you go to Club Central and you're going to go on that window that says submit awards. That's the step that's important in order to make sure that that award is submitted to TI so that that member receives the award. So what sometimes happens is the Basecamp manager will approve the level completion, but that submission of that award, that step in Club Central does not happen. And then you wonder, why didn't I get the award? That's because the award was not submitted. You will know whether or not that award is submitted as a member and as an officer, because once you submit it, the member receives an email from TI that says so-and-so has an award has been successfully submitted for you for whatever that level and path. If you never received that, then you need to follow up with your VPE on whether or not that award was submitted. And VPE, that's a trigger. If you didn't receive that award or email confirming, then that award was never submitted. So it would have to be, you have to follow up. Okay.
Another question.
Yes.
Remember level 3 people have to finish general evaluator, Toastmaster, and the table topic master, right? The question is, can they do it along the way? I think you just have to do once along the way, then you just have to put it in. You don't have to do that in the level 3.
Right. You don't have, you could do it, again, you could do it out of order. You may be still working on level 2, but if you've already served as a Toastmaster, table topics master, evaluator, that counts as part of that level 3 part.
Only have to do once. You don't have to, okay.
Right. Well, I would hope that everyone is doing those roles.
I know, but I have to record it. You have to record it in your personal thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we got any more questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Yingming. Appreciate it. All right, so now we are covering, we already covered this part. Okay, so for the DTM requirements, and I think, let me take a peek here. Okay, actually, the DTM requirements for pathways is under pathways. You have to complete 2 unique learning paths. You also have to have served at least 12 months as a club officer. You also have to be had served as either a club mentor or a club coach. Now, the club mentor here is not the mentor in a club that mentors a member. The club mentor is a mentor supports a newly chartered club. A club coach supports and strengthens a club that has fewer than 12 members on their membership roster. And the club mentor and club coach is almost similar, except for the club mentor is helping and orienting a new club. And if it's a grand spanking new Toastmasters club, not an advanced club that has already existing Toastmasters, but a club that has members who are new to Toastmasters, it is orienting them on all things Toastmasters. It's training them how to conduct meetings. It is helping to orient them in their roles. It's getting them all situated with pathways. It's assisting and supporting the club officers to make sure that they know what their roles are and helping them become oriented to that. It is like a club coach, but almost like on steroids because you're starting from scratch. But it's so rewarding to be able to support a newly chartered club. The club coach club mentor only has to serve in their role a minimum of 6 months or longer. It depends on how the club is doing. You want the club mentor to be, they're completed their service when basically the club can function on its own at its optimal level. That's when the club mentor's role is done. And it might take 6 months or it might take longer, but according to TI, it's a minimum of 6 months, and 6 months starts when on the date that the club was officially chartered, basically their birthday. A club coach will receive their credit only, it's based on the club's performance. The club must achieve distinguished or better in order for the club coach to receive their requirement. Now, I starred the club coach because there's a unique exception for the club coach as well as a district officer requirement, which I'll go into the next page. But the other requirement is you either have to serve as a club sponsor, which is you were part of the team responsible for chartering a new club. It it involves doing a lot of recruitment, establishing meetings for prospective new members, making sure that the charter paperwork is all in order, that's submitted to TI in order to charter the club. It's all involved in the first step of chartering the club. And then the other way is you either conduct a speechcraft or a youth leadership program. It's either one of those 3. And then the other is you have to serve as a district officer for 1 year. And that is as an area director, a division director, or any of the administrative and trio level officers counts as part of that requirement. So it's a club growth director, program quality director, a division or district director, a public relations manager, and a finance manager for the district. Those are the ones that qualify as a district officer. And then the last is complete a DTM project. Now that is that's not a high performance leadership project. It is actually a different project that you have to get from TI directly. And there are requirements in order for you, before you can actually request the DTM project, you have to complete, I forget, it's like I think it's 2, you have to complete at least 1 path and be either at level 2, I believe, in your second path before you can actually contact TI to get the instructions for the DTM project. Now, I highlighted the club coach and district director requirement here on the DTM requirements. And this is an exception, a unique year, because this year only, unless the TI board it grants this extension. And this was because of COVID. And last year we had the traditional program and pathways, and the traditional program was going to be gone by the end of June 30th. We have many members who still had to fulfill the district officer position or the club coaching requirement for their DTM under the traditional program. So what we refer to as the double credit means that for this year only, if you have completed a club, you're appointed or are appointed and are a current club coach, an active club coach, if you successfully complete that requirement for club coach, which means that the club that you're coaching now achieves distinguished or better by June 30th of this year, you will receive credit not only for the club coaching requirement, but you will also receive credit for the 1-year district officer position requirement without having served as a district officer. So it's a 2-for-1. And this really, we need club coaches. So if you are looking for a DTM requirement for pathways and you are not a club coach, take advantage of this. We still have clubs that still need coaches. So if you achieve that, you will receive the 2 credits for club coach and district officer position. And you can use that requirement for either, if you're still working on your DTM for the traditional, you can count it towards that, or you can keep it in the bank, so to speak, and use it for your pathways DTM project when you are ready. It's kind of like a handy savings bond, so to speak, that you can actually use for either one. So this is set to expire this year, and unless the TI board extends that. And so here's the DTM project. I was wrong. You have to complete 1 path for the DTM project and a level 3 in your second different path in order to access the DTM project. You as a member have to request that from TI, and it is a very extensive project that, because it's a level 5 project, it involves putting together a team, a plan. You're taking everything that you've reviewed in your prior levels, and now you're basically using those skills as an experiential experience, so to speak, to put that together. That's part of it. And there's 2 speeches that are required, as well as there's a 360 evaluation where you have a peer who is working with you and who's supporting you, that conducts a 360 evaluation of how you're doing in your project, identifying things that you do well in communication and leadership, and offering suggestions of improvement. Okay, so with that, actually I want to go, let me go back to this chart, because I hope you can see this. I'm now showing that pathways map document from Conejo Valley. This shows, it gives you the summary of the DTM requirements at the bottom. Same things that I reviewed with you, except for it doesn't talk about the 2-for-1 exception for this year, but it does summarize what you need to earn and do for your DTM. And I think we already went over all these other projects. So I will put this PDF in the chat box. And as well as, hold on one second, I'm going to, oops. Okay, so I'm going to also, that Google Share Drive, for those of you that were in the previous session, we have a Google Share Drive that has all of the resources, the PowerPoint, the deck from this presentation. I'm putting in the chat box the link to that share drive. And so you go into that and you click on, let's see here. Actually, before I share my screen, let me also share the pathways map.
Grace, I've also uploaded the 8077 pathways path and the core competency thing on the
Right.
chat box.
Okay.
Those are the what 12 pages still.
Thank you, Yingming. So let me go into, again, for those of you that just joined us for this session only, that link, and I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I have the right one. Okay, so that link, do you see this? It says a Google Drive and it has a list of all these files. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go into this, where you want to go is, you want to go to this top folder. It says District 33 Leadership Labs, other lab sessions. Click on that. This shared drive is a virtual drive. It's like your hard drive on your computer, except for it's accessible virtually. And so these are the names of all the leadership labs that we've had, the topics. And for each one, it has all the decks and the handouts. So this one here, the session we're in is Advanced for Pathways. So you'll see two files, a PowerPoint and the Pathways map that I actually just put in the chat box. The PowerPoint is a large file. It won't go through some of the files because it has, we have several files on Pathways that have a lot of screenshots. So the size of the file is huge. You cannot email it. So the only way for people to access it is through a drive. So you can, if you can download this onto your computer. Rest assured, the link I gave you will not let you delete it. So don't be afraid to access it, that you might accidentally delete something that everybody else is accessing. You can download that file. And again, everything that is on this drive that you see is for you as members to access and to use. These are resources. You feel free to take the PowerPoints, make it your own, use it as you want for yourself or for your club, especially if you're a VPE. If any of this is helpful to make your life easier as a club officer, have at it and use it. This is for you to be able to use.
That's a question in the chat box right above the Google Drive.
Okay.
Yes,
so
thank you so much, Clarice. That was my question. Let you go ahead and read then.
Okay, so question on the DTM requirement slide. It's and in between all the bullet point. I'm sorry, just notice. Sorry, which one are you talking about? The DTM requirement slide?
Yeah, on the DTM requirements slide, you had certain bullet points there, and I just wanted to clarify if that is and basically in between all of those bullet points, you need to complete every single bullet point that was on that slide.
Yes.
Is that right?
Every single one of these, yes. And in fact, I don't know if you see this on my, I don't know, did I share the screen? Oops. Yes. Oh, I don't want to cancel the meeting. Okay. Yes, it's all the requirements for everything. It's an and for all of it. And also on that pathways map, all the things that are listed on there are all the requirements. So they are all ands. Unless, actually, let me clarify this. On the bullet point, okay, so let's just say here the sentence serve as a club mentor or club coach. You do not need to do club mentor and club coach. In order to, you have to check off that, basically that bullet, you fulfill that by either serving as a club mentor or a club coach. And then the category, the next bullet point, you have to do one of these. You either have to serve as a club sponsor, conduct a speech craft, or do a youth leadership program. It's not all three, it's just one of those. And then the other one is serve as a district officer. You have to do that unless you have, this year you've completed a club coach. That's a whole nother, you can get a 2-for-1 credit without having completed it. So
Thank you for clarifying.
No problems. I hope that answers your question, right, Anthony?
It does.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes,
And I probably already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway.
have at it.
If
Linda.
you already have a DTM, because there's a lot of people that already do, and they
Mhm.
want to achieve a new DTM using new pathways, and they've already been an officer, an area director, or something of any sort prior to the ending of legacy, do they have to be an officer all over again?
Yes, they have to fulfill all those requirements. You cannot use one requirement that fulfilled one DTM and then apply it to another one. You have to complete the requirements for each unique DTM.
Okay, that's
Now, if they got twice already beforehand,
Right. Now, unless, like, for example, if you've already served, say, twice as a district officer, 1 year you were an area director, and then the other year, say you were a division director. But when you submitted your legacy or your traditional DTM, your application, what you put on the requirement, you checked off and you put your area director term. Okay, so you fulfilled that on that application, but you still served as a division director, whether it was 2 years or 3 years ago, but you never submitted it on your application.
as part of that
As
DTM.
part of that DTM, you don't have to do it because you've already served it.
Okay.
But you
Got
didn't put it on your application.
You know, the format that you provided shows. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So the format you provided with all of the programs, all the pathways, is a great tool because each individual person for their pathway can follow it going all the way across. And if they have different pieces, they'll be able to utilize that and keep track and put a date. And I'm almost thinking it would be would be a great idea just to say, okay, I'm this level, I'm this pathway. So create an independent check sheet for each independent pathway. And does Toastmasters have something like that yet?
I don't know. And you actually, this is why, one of the reasons why I love this one pager visual is because at a glance, it gives you what those requirements are, but you'll need to do the research on what these projects entail. Because even though you may be here in a level 1 or 2,
bottom options are what they represent.
you're doing something as a club officer or you're doing something as a district officer. Make it count. Okay. And you're doing, you're involved in an area or a division contest, or you may be doing some other thing. There is a project in here that you can apply as a pathways project. Or you may be doing something at work that's taking a lot of time and effort. You're working with the team. Find a pathways project that you can make it not only make it count, but the projects provide you with some guidance and some pieces that can actually and may help you in what you're supposed to be, what you're doing, either at work or in your role. It can give you some guidance in tackling some things. And again, you don't have to do this sequentially. You can do the projects out of order, but know that in order for you to get that completion, you can't complete say you're on level 2, and then you complete all the projects on level 4. You can't get a level 4, you can't submit a level 4 completion because you still have to complete level 2 and 3. The system will say, well, wait a second, once you mark it as complete, you can't submit it out of order, but you can complete projects
Out of order.
Okay,
that makes
projects. Okay.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So
thank you so much.
Very welcome. You're very welcome. All right. So I saw Danielle's hand go up. Danielle, you have a question? I see. Okay, so you sent me. Okay, so any of you who would like or needs to be assigned would like to a club coaching, or another member who would like to, please contact your area director. Contact your area director for what club coaching opportunities. Or you could do both, your area director and your division director. Because right now with the virtual capabilities, I know that we have some club coaches that are from out of the area and are meeting and supporting the clubs virtually. So contact your area director and your division directors for club coaching opportunities. Okay, Brittany and Michelle, I saw your hand. So Brittany, your hand was up first that I saw.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, speaking of getting the DTM, in order to get DTM, should I complete like 5 paths on the pathways?
No, you only need to complete two different paths. And then all the other requirements that are part of the DTM. So again, I'm using this pathways map. So this one outlines what you need to do. Complete 2 learning paths, and they have to be different. And then the other pieces, you have to do the club officer role, serve as a district officer, all these other requirements that are checked, you have to complete, and that will fulfill your pathways DTM requirements. Of course, there's an application that you have to submit, but
yeah, and then also because I completed level 2 levels on the innovative planning.
okay. Well, you have to complete up to level 5. Completing of a level means you've completed 5 levels. Okay.
5 levels?
Right, 5 levels in a path. So in order for you to complete one path, you have to complete 5 levels.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Brittany. Okay, one last question, Michelle.
Hi, Clarice.
Yes.
Question on, this is a little strange of a question, but we have a lot of people that are older who were on obviously the legacy. Now, I didn't do legacy, so I'm really a little bit clueless this way. But we are having a hard time motivating them to want to do pathways because they don't really any longer want to do all those roles like the things, and they want to speak, they want to do speeches that aren't really counting. I'm just questioning, how do you motivate people that really don't want to, that used to do that, we're doing legacy, and I don't know, this is hard for me because I don't know what legacy was particularly. That how do you motivate them to want to do a path instead when there's all these things that they don't want to be doing because they're no longer working and they don't want to, do you understand what I'm saying? They want to speak, but they don't want to do, I don't know.
Well, that I think number one, it would depend on the member, because you may want to find out, other than they don't want to do it, what are there some other barriers or some other things that are making them, they don't want to do it? For example, some of them may not feel comfortable with technology. They're not comfortable with Zoom, the internet, computers. And so trying to find out where they're at, and at the same time, keep them engaged in the club. Find things, for example, are they good with the functionary roles? Would they be willing to serve and help a new member with the functionary roles and help them with their speeches? Find ways for them to keep engaged, and then you have to find, and we could talk offline. I can give you some suggestions on that. Maybe let's email and maybe have a Zoom and a conversation on that, and then I can give you some suggestions.
I have a question,
Michelle.
Okay.
Mary has a question.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the time, so we have one last question. So is it Mary?
Mary Elaine. Mary Elaine, I will, what she said, Michelle, was really true. We just want to give speeches. I'm not in a working for, I don't have to learn all these things for leadership and being in the work field. I want to be in Toastmasters just to give speeches. I'm making that point.
Okay.
And is there any way pathways will just let us do speeches and not do all these requirements of, you see, okay?
Yes, and actually, Mary and Michelle, would you be willing to stay a few minutes after?
Yes.
Mary, could you stay a few minutes after this? Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, I want to be mindful of your time. I want to thank you so much for participating and being a part of our leadership lab. I hope you learned one new thing from this session, at least, that you could take
Can
away
you
for
answer that
yourself
question
in
to
your
Mary
club.
Lane?
Okay. So thank you so much, and stay tuned for an evaluation form, and feel free to contact me, access that Google Drive. And thank you so much for everything, and you have a wonderful evening. And I hope to see you at the next Leadership Lab, which is this Wednesday. We have 2 sessions or 2 tracks for next Wednesday. Or this Wednesday. It's 2 days, okay?
I'm like, wait, I thought it was this Wednesday. Okay.
No, it's like, all right, have a great evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much. Bye.
Clarice.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Clarice.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Okay, so Mary Elaine and Michelle, and Mary Elaine, I totally understand, and that's why you joined Toastmasters, like you said, to give speeches, and others are doing that. And there is a way, and you need to work it out with your club. And the reason I say that is, in a club, you have members who are working on pathways, who would like to earn their educational awards. And they use the club meetings as the venue and the opportunity to complete those speeches. So I would say you work it out with the club, and it's up to the club to figure out how to do the speeches. And you can do any of the speeches that are on pathways. Okay, you can. But know that if you're not, you want to be sure that there's a balance in the club to allow those members to still stay engaged because of why they joined Toastmasters to do those speeches, like you, Mary Elaine. But then the fine balance is, where do you also ensure that there's time carved out in a meeting for those members who want to get those awards on pathways, who have to complete the requirements on pathways.
Well, so Clarice, we are lacking speeches because people are on project things that take some time.
Right.
And the other people don't want to be on a path because they don't really want to do all the things on the path,
Right.
but they don't really want to give speeches and not get credit. So it's this balance where they're like, well, I'm giving speeches, but I'm not really getting credit. The club's not getting credit for what I'm doing. And I was wondering if, right. So
yeah, that's the other is the club will only receive credit on pathway speeches.
So my question is, this is a TI question. This isn't necessarily a you question. I really wanted to address TI. I may do this as a project, actually, to see if we can get TI to put a couple things in there where it's more speech oriented and it doesn't necessarily get you a DTM, but that it gives you some credits for those people that don't want, not everybody wants that in their life. Like a lot of people are past that stage of their life. It gives those people an opportunity to do something that they want to do without.
Yes, and actually, here's another thing. What one of my clubs, what we do, is, say Mary Elaine is giving a speech. It's not say it's not a pathway speech. She's not, Mary Elaine, you're not doing it for pathways. But however, you have a member who's evaluating you, and that member could get a level 1 evaluation credit by serving as your evaluator.
We don't have that.
You may, they'll have to use maybe an evaluation project, but they have to be reviewed on how they evaluate and do their evaluation speech. So in a sense, you could allow that allow that member to fulfill a requirement. But like I said, it's, and Brenda, I'd like you to chime in too, what your thoughts are on this. Trying to find out.
I do have one recommendation on it,
Okay.
and that is to purchase a paper path for presentation mastery. Presentation mastery is just speaking. So they have.
There not projects at the end. I haven't seen it. Presentation mastery. There are not big projects at the end.
they're all speech projects.
Okay.
Level 5 is to give a professional speak. So that way they can go and do speeches and get credit in pathways, support the club,
Right.
and get what they want. They don't want to go online and do all of that work.
Right.
It's an extra $25, but purchase the paper path.
Yeah.
Once you've completed the path, you can purchase the same path. You can just do presentation mastery over and over again.
Yes, that's
Okay.
great.
Thank you for that. I was wondering about that. Okay, great. That's awesome.
Actually,
And
let me-
the other possibility is this. Now, another one mainly focus on the speech part of it will be engaging humor. If they want to give funny, humorous speeches, that one is mainly in the speech area. Now,
Yeah.
what I would say is if they can find a buddy system in the club who can help them kind of navigate through the pathways, but they still can pick one of those two paths. They'll mainly give speeches. The other person will work with them, kind of go through those little computer things, go through that. But all they have to do is do projects, speech projects. They are giving
That's
speeches,
what they want to do.
engaging humor and/or presentation mastery. Those are only
Yeah.
speeches,
But I thought
no other stuff.
Yeah, let me show you
I thought there
on
was
this.
projects at the end of, didn't it still say there's a project at the end of,
No, so,
Well-
so can you see this? I put the map again.
I can see it. So,
Okay, so if you look at presentation mastery,
yes.
and we start here on the left. Okay, so this one here is, okay, level 1, 2, and 3. So what Brenda was suggesting is you look at the projects, if you get the actual hard copy of the manual. For level 1, you're doing icebreakers
Right.
speeches here on presentation mastery. Then when you get to level 2, one of them is on something on communication, but then you do a speech on using effective body language. That's like one of the, the legacy program speeches. And then when you get to level 3 for presentation mastery, it's a very familiar topic, persuasive speaking, to do speeches. And then you look at these elective projects. So Mary Elaine, you could do a speech, connect with storytelling. You could do another one, delivering social speeches, inspire your audience. There's a selection in here. A lot of these are very familiar speeches that were based on the traditional legacy program. And you only need to complete these two, and your club will receive a level 1, 2, and 3 once you complete those. You don't have to do level 4 and 5s with all these projects. But like what Brenda said, you can keep doing these speeches on the same levels, and then at the same time, your club will benefit and receive credit for that. For
So
those
you could
speeches.
technically do one path through level 3 and then do another path through level 3 and not really finish.
No, you
it.
could do presentation mastery again, right, Brenda?
But this presentation.
You have to purchase it again
Yeah,
to
you have
get
to purchase it again, right?
Right.
it all the way through level 5.
Well, I didn't see the end of presentation mastery.
You
what the
basically give a keynote speak professionally. So it's a long speech. I'm sure they'd like to get up there and speak for 15 minutes, 18, I think it is, something like that.
Yeah, so presentation for level 4, speaking on, managing a difficult audience, and then here level 4, some other, well, these are more projects, and then the other one is
Question and answer session.
Yeah.
so you could, that's one, and that way, again, your club also benefits, and you get the ability to just go ahead and just speak. You're not working for a DTM.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
another option. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I do. I have one more question for you though, Clarice. Sorry to bother you, but
Oh, no worries.
But what happens when someone's giving a speech and like the directions say you're supposed to be using, what was it? There's like more well, I can't think what she did today. It was I'm trying to see, because it's happened today and I was just like, what do you do with when they don't do the directions? Like, you know, you're giving credit for a speech, but they didn't follow the directions of that speech. How does that go? I mean, did you just get credit because you did it anyway? I'm asking because it's happened a bunch of times, and it happened last year when someone was trying to get a DTM and I was like, you didn't do anything that was asking you to do, but you get credit anyway. I'm asking how that goes in a club.
Well,
And basically the rule of the club. Some clubs say if you're supposed to give a speech that's researching and then you present it and you give it with something that has not been researched, they won't give credit. They ask you to do it again. Other clubs will say it's a learning tool. You've been shown what you did not succeed in doing that project, and they'll still give credit. It varies from club to club.
So just club, just however you want it to do in your club.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like, I mean, last year's was worse because it was like that was not even credit, but you get credit for something you didn't do, which I thought was odd because it was really nothing to do with I remember last year's project someone did. I was like, I mean, it was a speech on something, and I was like, I read the directions again, and they said there was nothing in there that had to do.
Well, that's an example of when you do your communication style, and they didn't talk anything about their communication